Okay, y'all, so we back with part 8, the final chapter of my Hoodoo Storytime, Take the Long Road Home. Let's get on into it. So let's go back 9 months, y'all. 9 months to the day that the doctor gave Calvin the bad news that he was paralyzed. It could be temporary, but no one knew. After that, he went to a rehab facility. He stayed there for about 2 months, and then after that, he was brought home to him and Deja's house. Deja, still wanting to be the doting wife to everybody else and not look guilty or suspicious, she decided to go home and help Calvin with his recovery. Miss Minnie wasn't with it, but Deja assured her that she would be safe and that she would make sure that Calvin was good at least for a few months. So maybe about 6 months into it, they both decided that they wanted to get a divorce because they couldn't really stand to be around each other. During the time that they were together at the home, Deja didn't sleep in the bed with him or anything. The only thing she did was consult with the doctors and nurses, make sure that he got his medication, and assisted with physical therapy. Being that they both was lawyers, they decided to settle the divorce themselves and not take it to any kind of arbitration or court. Deja asked Calvin how did he want to split everything, and Calvin's remark was, "Bitch, you got my $50,000." So with that being said, Deja left everything else. They did liquidate the home, but after that, she left everything else to Calvin, and she decided to take the long road home back to Miss Minnie's house to stay for a while. While back at Miss Minnie's house, Deja decided to use this time as a time of self reflection and growth. She started to find herself again. She started to realize that she didn't need a man to define who she was. She regretted the time that she spent as being a housewife when she could have been out using her law degree just like Calvin. But she also knew that everything happened for a reason and everything happened in divine timing. After Deja left Calvin and he realized that she really wasn't coming back, he started to spiral into a deep, dark depression. He got addicted to the pain medication that he was taking for his recovery, and he started drinking alcohol very heavily. Soon after, he hired a private detective to find out where uh, Deja was because he still was hell bent on revenge. After finding out where Miss Minnie lived and was located, he would come down, he would just sit and stalk. He would watch the house from afar to see their activities and their movements, to see who was coming in and out, and to peep out Deja's other family members that he may not have met. He was trying to see when it would be a good time to grab her or get revenge on her without anybody seeing him or him getting caught, because he was walking, but when Deja left, that last thing she knew was that he was still paralyzed. So he put on a front and pretended that he still was, so that when he did try to get her, it would be a shock. The shit really hit the fan for Calvin when he was stalking Deja and he saw Detective White come to Miss Minnie's house. When he saw Deja get in the car with him, he started following them. He followed them all the way to Myrtle Beach and kept watching from afar. He saw them become intimate on the beach, and then he also saw them go to the hotel room. Now, from Deja's point of view, that was one of the best nights of her life. She had never been with any other man besides Calvin, and the experience was breathtaking and mind blowing. But her gifts and her intuition kept warning her that something wasn't right, and she still kept her distance from Detective White after this, kind of like protecting him because she didn't know what was going to happen, and she was still hesitant about falling in love after being hurt so deeply by Calvin. The relationship with her and her family got even better. Her and Miss Minnie hashed out a lot of past trauma and hurt that was going on, and Deja didn't understand. Deja always blamed Miss Minnie for the death of her father, but after talking to Miss Minnie and breaking some things down, she realized that her dad did have a drinking problem and he was abusive, and which caused him to have an illness. The drinking problem caused him to have an illness, which caused him to pass away. She was just upset and young at the time, and being that Miss Minnie was a root worker, she felt like Miss Minnie had something to do with it. But they began to forgive each other and heal, and even her and Sharon started to get along better. So the night of the big birthday bash for Miss Minnie, Calvin was still spiraling out of control. He was sitting out at the party, but no one recognized him. It was a bunch of cars out there, and everybody was going inside. When he see Detective White walk in, that really pushed him over the edge. When Detective White walked into the party, Deja couldn't help but run over and give him a hug. The love between them was undeniable, and she couldn't fight it any longer. She was so happy to see him, and she knew that she wanted him to be in her life. When Deja went in the back to get some ice, the next thing she knew, she was grabbed from behind. Somebody covered her mouth. A gun was stuck into her back, and she was forced to go outside. As the party went on, and they couldn't find Deja, everybody started to look for her. When they went in the back and saw the bucket of ice and ice all over the ground, they immediately knew that something was wrong. Calvin took Deja to his car. He forced her in. When he tried to leave, he realized that he was blocked in because so many people had came to the party that by the time he went in to grab her and come back out, they had him completely blocked in and he couldn't get out. When everybody realized that Deja was missing and they went outside to look for her, that's when he forced her out of the car at gunpoint and started walking to the back towards the pond. Miss Minnie immediately sprung into action. She ran back into the house upstairs to her stash. She had put Calvin in a jar. She put manure, dead bugs, rusty nails, coffin nails, anything that could help to sour his situation was in that jar. She also took some water from that same pond that is sacred and blessed. She put the water in the jar and she set it up. Now I believe that it worked because he became an alcoholic, he began to get depressed and spiral out of control. Miss Minnie grabbed that jar and she shook that jar for dear life, y'all. She shook that jar and shook that jar and shook that jar till she couldn't shake it anymore. She spoke to the jar and she prayed that Calvin would not hurt her daughter. Back outside, Calvin was still pointing a gun at Deja, and the people outside were trying to talk him down. But he started cursing at them and threatening them too. He told them to back up before he got one of them right along with Deja. They got closer and closer to the pond. The next thing you know, Calvin becomes completely paralyzed. It's like he can't move. He stops talking, and he's just standing there like he's stunned. Next thing you know, Detective White comes walking up, but Calvin doesn't see him because he's coming from the back of the house. But he's strapped and he is ready to defend Deja. When Deja realizes that Calvin is some kind of paralyzed or shocked or whatever he's going through, she only has one option. She always had a fear of that pond because she fell in it when she was a little girl and it terrified her. But at this point, she didn't have a choice. Deja jumped into the pond. When she jumped into the pond, Detective White pow Calvin in his shoulder, taking him down. Deja went under, and when she came back up, she was refreshed, revitalized, and she knew that she was here for a reason. She knew that her life meant more than what she ever thought that it did before. Calvin was then hauled off to jail. Deja got out of the pond, hugged her mom, and as the people in the crowd was around, she said, "Don't y'all go nowhere. I'm about to change clothes, and we gonna continue this party. We not letting nothing stop my mama's birthday bash." That's when Deja changed clothes. The party continued, and they partied to the wee hours of the morning, y'all. Calvin was hauled off to jail and was sentenced to 15 years behind bars. But I think he adjusted quite well. He may have been where he wanted to be anyway. A year later, Deja walked down the aisle marrying Detective White. Not to mention that her stomach was very big because she was pregnant with his child. After they got married, y'all, Deja opened up her law firm down in the town where her mom was to defend her people and help her community. After all this happened, y'all, a sense of peace came over her. Her life became much more quiet but more loving. She knew who she was, she stood in her purpose, and she walked the walk. Now, that is the end of Taking the Long Road Home, y'all. Thank y'all for riding out with me to the end. It is I, your girl, Divine Chosen, and as always, y'all know I'm gonna holler. Peace.